Well, this thing might be a little too loud. Well, I'm happy to be in the Lord's house this evening, and there's no other place that I'd rather be, and that's the honest truth. Lord knows my heart. This is where I want to be. I want to be here preaching, and it's what God's called me to do. I love to do it. If you have your Bibles, we'll be in John chapter number 10. John chapter number 10. Pray for our pastor as he's out, and he texted me today at about 12 o'clock, which figures. So, the Lord's He's helped me today and give me what I needed. But we'll pray and we'll read. And it says in chapter number 10, John chapter number 10, verse number 10, it says, "The thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly." Lord, thank you for this evening, God, and Lord, what we've already experienced, God, the prayer, Lord, and what we've sung, God. I pray, Lord, that tonight you would help us. God, the task that's set before me, God, I cannot do alone. Lord, I have to have you tonight. God, I need you. Lord, I can't do this alone. And Lord, I pray, God, for everybody here, Lord, I pray that you would touch them, God, and help them, God, and feed them, Lord, as I preach, God. And I pray for Luke over in the fellowship hall. And God, I pray, Lord, that you would touch him, God, and touch his preaching. God, I pray for all the youth out there. Lord, help them, God, and feed them. In Jesus' name, amen. I'll read this verse again because sometimes we read over it and we don't really understand. But it says in verse number 10, "The thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly." This evening, with the Lord's help, I want to preach on this thought: a war for your soul. A war for your soul. What we need to understand tonight is that in a spiritual realm and in the spiritual thing around us, there's a war that's going on around us. There's a war between God and Satan always happening in our life. It's with salvation. It's with our day-to-day lives. And what we need to understand before I can say anything is that whether we realize it or not, whether we can see it or not, whether we can feel it or not, around us in a spiritual realm, there's a war that is going on. And it's nothing that we've ever seen. It's not like any of the world wars we've seen. It's not like any war that we've seen here on earth. This is a war that we can't even imagine. This is between God and Satan. And as I'm thinking about this war for our soul, we have God on one side, and if this pulpit's our mind, and if it's our life, it's what's going on in our mind. What's going on is we have God on one side, and we have Satan on the other. And there's always conflict. There's always fighting. There's always beckoning. They're always fighting for our soul. And this is personal tonight. You got to take this personal. We can't sit here and say, "Oh, I hope they heard that right," or "I hope they understand what he just said." No, we need to focus on ourselves. We need to focus on how God can help us. And we need to focus on how this is all about me. So, like I said, let's just imagine that for a second. So if this pulpit's our mind and there's a war for our soul, we have God on one side and we have Satan on the other. They're always fighting. But what are they fighting for? It's like I said, they're literally fighting for our soul. They are fighting for us. And you know who decides who wins? You do. You decide who wins that war. You have to make that personal decision. So I see, like I said, this pulpit's our mind. We have both of them on either side, and they're always fighting. And in my mind, it's just the way that I think about things. If it's God and his army, and it's Satan and all his demons. If there was a banister up high that read something, if it was the Lord, I think the banister would say, "I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly." And then I'll look over here. You know what it says? This is what I think it says. "I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly." Why did I repeat myself? Because he's a liar. He makes it seem like that's what is going to happen if you follow him, if you give him the victory. But if I go over here and I pull back the curtain of that verse that I read, if I pull back the curtain and I seen what was really imprinted on that banister, I think it would say, the thief cometh not, but for to steal and to kill and destroy. That's what it really says. But what the devil does this evening, he couldn't tell the truth if he wanted to. The truth. However you say it. But he couldn't tell the truth if he wanted to. He's a liar. So what I'm thinking about is you have him on one side and then you have God on the other, and there's a constant war. There's always a war going on, and it's for your soul. See the difference? This is the difference. They're both telling you the same thing. God's telling you that I'm come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. That's what he's telling you, and that's the truth. But then Satan's saying the same thing. So how do you know? Well, we'll get into that later. But so as an introduction, that's how I'm seeing this. I'm just letting you know that that's what we have to understand, is that there's a war that is always going to happen for our salvation and in our lives. But what I want to look at right now is there's different types of wars. It's not just one big war. Whenever somebody's lost, there's a war for their salvation. There's a war for their soul. And then when somebody gets saved, it's the same thing, but you're secure. There's always going to be a war. Whenever you're saved, you're going to battle every single day. Every day you wake up, there's going to be a war for your soul, for your mind, for everything that you do. And there's going to be voices, and there's going to be beckoning, and there's going to be all these things, but we have to decide who wins. So, a long, long time ago, we all know the story, Adam and Eve, right, in the garden. When did this war start? When they sinned. Whenever they sinned, ever since then, they just gave the devil access to a lot of things, to a lot of weapons. And ever since that day until now, that when I'm standing here right now, there has been a war for everybody's soul. There's been a war for everybody's mind. There's been a war for everybody's eternity. There's been a war for everyone's soul. So I see that that's where it started. But what I want to look at real quick is what the war costs. What the war cost. There's a lot of things that it cost. But it's not just voices in our mind. Like, I'm not talking about just this thing like where, like the Lord's telling me to do this and the devil's telling me to do that. It's not about that. Like, I'm saying that there's an actual war going on. Like something that we've never could imagine. And with Jesus, whenever I say, what did the war cost? Well, it cost Jesus his life. You see, this is another thing. This is how I think about it. Jesus won. He won the war. But he ain't going to force you to pick him. He's not going to force you to choose him. So we're left here. Whenever we're born into this world, we're born into sin. We're born into a war, and we have to decide who wins. Every single day when we wake up, we have to decide who wins. It's not just this thing where it's like, oh, God already won. So, no, you have to, every single day when you wake up, you have to decide who's going to win the war. Because there's a war and you have to decide who wins. And I've never seen a war where you get to decide who wins. It's always one side against the other, two armies that are at war, and they're fighting for whoever wins. They're fighting so they can win. But if this is the mind, I'm right in the middle of it. God's begging me to come to him. The devil's begging me to come to him. What are you going to do? It's the same for you every single day when you wake up. But I'll just cover this real quick. I don't know why the Lord's really just laid this on my heart with salvation or not. And I'm like, Lord, there's not really a lot of people here tonight. But I'm just going to, I got to do what he wants me to do. But whenever it comes to salvation, I remember whenever I was 10 years old, I was down here, and I was in Watauga County, and we were at the youth rally that Pastor was having. I was sitting on the second row. Whenever I was 10, I was at Pleasant Hill. Anyway, the Lord was convicting my heart. And I knew that's the first time that God really showed me that I was lost. I knew that I had to be saved. And I'm sitting there, and the Lord's convicting me. My heart's beating out of my chest. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, Lord, not right now, not right now, not right now, not right now. And there's a war that's going on inside of my head. There's a war when it comes to salvation that we can't even explain. The devil's in my ear And if you want to know anything about Gavin Hughes, I hate this. I hate Satan. I hate him. I want to watch him get cast into hell. But anyway, I have the devil in one ear, and he's saying, it don't have to happen right now. It's all right. It don't have to happen right now. And then God's just begging me to go to the altar, begging me to accept him. And you know what I did? I got right up and I walked out the doors. And I didn't do anything about it. I let the devil win. So then a year passes. I'm 11 years old. We're at the youth rally that pastor had, the Rising to the Occasion youth rally. And I did not want to go. I mean, my mom and dad, they were supposed to work that day. I thought I was good. I thought I was scotch-free. But anyway, here they are picking us up from school. And I'm like, good night. So they pick us up from school. And we're on our way over there, and I can already feel it. Like, I just know that something's going to happen. And then, so I'm sitting in my seat, the second row, and there it is. As soon as the invitation started, the Lord started convicting my heart like crazy. And I had a war that was going on inside of my head. And if you are saved tonight, you have a war that was inside your head whenever you got saved. And I would always repeat the same words. I would say, Lord, not right now, not right now, not right now. Mom leaned over. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. No, I wasn't. Lord, I was dying inside. So, and there was a war. I could just feel like, I can never explain the feeling that I had sitting in that seat whenever I just knew that God, like I could hear it almost audibly, God begging me to come, God begging me to get down in that altar. And I was just sitting there, God, not right now, not right now. It's pride. It's all these things. And I was like, God, not right now, not right now. And it's a war going back and forth and back and forth. And finally, it's like everything went quiet. And I said, I just got to go. So I got up, and that's when I got saved. I let God win. And and I don't know if you're here tonight and you're lost. I don't know everybody's heart. But if you're lost, there's a war that's going on inside of your mind, and it's a war for your soul. The devil would want nothing more than to drag you to hell. And God would want nothing more than to save you. So we understand that there's a war for our soul. So I already talked about my salvation and how whenever God's dealing with somebody, it's like the war, it just really comes to life. Like you can just sense it. But it's not only, so it didn't only cost Jesus' life. We're talking about what the war cost. It didn't just affect his life. It didn't just cost his life. Jesus had to die. It cost his life for him to win the war. But like I was saying earlier, he already won. He's already won the war for you. It's already happened. But now, if you're lost, you have to make that decision to let him win in your life. You got to let him make that decision. So it didn't just cost him his life, but it's also going to cost like souls of other people. It's not just salvation tonight. If you're saved, there's a war for your soul as soon as you wake up every single morning. There's a war for your soul, even if you're saved. And sometimes, whenever like God will ask us to witness to somebody, for example, like there's a war that's going on inside our mind. God's asking you to witness to him. God's asking you to talk to him. And I'm the world's worst at picking God to win. It's my pride. We all got pride. But whenever God's asking, like today, I was on my way home from work, and it's like I was thinking about this message and how I'm going to be preaching this, and then it's like, well, why don't you like do it right now? Why don't you talk to somebody right now? And I was riding home with one of my coworkers, and I was like, oh my goodness. So, but ended up we talked about it a little bit. We talked about the Lord, but when it comes to witnessing, it's the same thing. It's a war. Whenever it comes to anything, decisions you make, there's always going to be the devil in one ear saying something, and then there's always going to be God in the other. And you got to decide who's going to win. So whenever God's asking you to witness somebody, you got to make up in your mind, am I going to do what God's wanting me to do? Am I going to talk to somebody? And it's not just witnessing. This is with anything. With anything. If God ever asks you to do something, the devil's always going to be on the other side waiting to tear into you. That's just how it is. So, but for example, like I was saying, I keep beating around the bush. But anyway, for example, with witnessing, you want to talk to somebody, God's wanting you to talk to somebody, and you got pride in the way. That's the war going on. You got the devil on one side saying all these lies, and then God's begging you just to do what He's asked you to do. But that's with anything. So, like I said, with any situation that you can plug it into, like you got to get personal this evening. You got to understand that whatever you're going through tonight, like you got to make up your mind who's going to win the war that you're going through. So, the second thing that I see is the beckoning of the war. So what does it mean to beckon somebody? So that's like Peter and Andrew, and whenever Jesus called them to be his disciples. So whenever He done that, He beckoned to them. He was using hand motions. They're using hand motions to like draw somebody near to them. Like if I'm beckoning Adrian, I'm doing this. I'm telling him to come near me. And I see the beckoning of the war. And in my mind, how I see it is God's over here. I already explained it with salvation, and like I'll never be able to understand it or explain it. But whenever I was being dealt with for salvation, it was like God was just doing this. That's what it was. And then the devil's doing the opposite. But that's literally with anything. So whenever God's asking us to do something, it's always like that's just how it is. He's telling us to come this way. But then I told you wrong. The devil's also going to do that. He's going to say, come this way. Come this way. So you got a decision to make. That's what I'm trying to get at this evening is you have a decision to make in about every situation that you can think about. With salvation, if you're lost, if you're saved, your day-to-day life, you have a decision to make. And there's no getting around it. But I see the beckoning that these two sides have, that God's, all He's doing is this, and then all the devil's doing is the same thing. And we got to find the lies of the devil. It literally says in verse number 10, the thief cometh not but for to steal. Listen, I'm about fed up of Satan here recently. He stole too much from me, and he's tried to kill too many people spiritually, and it's just he's destroyed so many homes, and it's about he's just done that. He's done it too much. He stole too much joy from me. I doubted my salvation for a really long time, and he stole too much joy from me. He stole too much peace from me, and he's destroyed. Just countless amount of things. He destroyed families, and he's just making all these things fall apart. And we can talk about abortion. I'm not going to get too political, but it's obvious. We know that it's murder. Like the devil's literally coming to kill, steal, and destroy. He's like killing babies, putting it in people's minds. Anyway, I'm about fed up. But anyways, so we can put that with, any situation, with him beckoning towards us. And, that we talked about salvation. And with sin, it's almost like the reverse effect. Whenever you're tempted to sin, Satan's over here beckoning. And then God's saying, that's what he's doing. Whenever we're tempted to sin. And something that if I'm going to be completely transparent, what I struggle with is consistency with things. So whenever I go home at night, and then I know I need to read my Bible, there's a war going on. Whenever you go home and you're faced with a decision, there's a war. Whenever you go out, there's a war. Whenever anything, you can plug that into however you want to. But whenever I go home and I'm faced with the decision, am I going to spend time with the Lord or am I not? Am I going to go to sleep or be on my phone or whatever? There's a war that's going on. I'm hearing things coming from over here like, oh, you can do it in the morning. I don't wake up. I can't do that. So, that's just not an option for me, but I hear it. It's like, you can wake up in the morning, get motivation, wake up in the morning. And then over here, it's like, why don't you just spend some time with me? And there's a war that's going on. And that's with everything. With Bible reading, especially with prayer, it's just like the Lord always wants to spend time with you. He always wants to grow that relationship with you. And And there's always going to be a war that's drawing you away from it. There's always going to be a war drawing you away from it. So we see that with Bible reading and prayer. And Miss Monica, if you'll come to the piano. This is where I'm wrapping up. I've been all over the place. I'm sorry. But I guess I haven't preached in so long. I've been ready to go. But number 3, what I find is the decision that you have to make. You can't get around it. Every single day that you wake up. If you haven't heard anything I said, hear this. There is a decision that you have to make. You have to make it. With salvation, with waking up in the morning and deciding to follow the Lord, it don't matter. You have to make that decision. You have to make a conscious decision to follow the Lord. If you're lost, there's no getting around it. You have to make up your mind to say yes to Jesus or to say no. There is no getting around it. There is no waiting. It's either yes or no. Whenever I walked away from the Lord, whenever I was 10, I said no. I rejected Him. And there was no getting around that. There wasn't, Lord, wait. There wasn't nothing. It was no, and it was rejection. There's no getting around it tonight. If you're lost, there's a decision that you have to make. And I don't know why that's so heavy on my heart tonight. I don't know what it is. I don't know if maybe you're lost tonight, but you have to make a decision. You got to make a decision. And with the saved person, you got to make a decision daily. The Bible says, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. I've preached on that verse before, and I love it because it's straight up how you follow Jesus. That's the instructions right there. If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. So tonight, if you're saved, you have a decision to make every time you wake up. Every day that you get out of the bed, you have a decision to make. Are you going to let God win, or are you going to let Satan win? Because they're always fighting for your soul, for your mind. And are we going to say yes to Jesus, or are we going to say yes to Satan? Because there is no gray area. You have to make a decision. You have to do it. There's a decision that you have to make every day. So I wonder tonight, maybe you haven't been making that decision. Or maybe you just want to come pray, Lord, help me in everything that I do to make that decision and choose you. Lord, in everything that I do, whenever it comes to reading my Bible, whenever it comes to witnessing, whenever it comes to praying, Lord, there's a war that's going on inside of my mind, and I want you to win. Would it be you tonight? Do you want that? There's a decision that you got to make every single day. Every day that we wake up. The devil's always going to fight, and God's always going to beg you to come closer to Him. There's always going to be a war. There's always going to be a war. Until the Lord comes back, there's a war for your soul. The devil would want nothing more than to destroy your life. He don't want nothing more than to destroy your family, than to tear down your children, to lead them down the wrong road. There's always a war. And Satan always will have something to say. He'll always be waiting for you.